Hello, and welcome to The Surprise Truth, where a timely insight can change your life forever. Today, we have a very special episode all about energy transition and the kind of work, technology, innovations that are being done in order to make this world a better place, a more sustainable world. Today, we have with us Ashish Bhandari, the MD and CEO of Thermax, a global company that is focusing on the world of energy transition and helping companies to be a trusted partner in their journey of energy transition. So welcome, Ashish, and glad to have you here in Indonesia, and good to see you. And we'd like to have a little bit of a chat. And how has been your day so far?
Fantastic. I always love coming to Indonesia. Salamat pagi, Sachin, to all the listeners as well. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So I'm going to go straight into the discussion, right? A lot of questions now go around companies that are offering energy transition, and you come from a background of consulting and business strategies, and you got inspired to move into a company like this, which is focusing on energy transition. So what inspired you, and what could be like your leadership philosophy, which is driving this company?
So in India, we have something called as arranged marriage.
Yeah.
Which is something that starts with serendipity, and everything else grows from that point of on. It was something like that for me. I'm an electrical engineer, but my first job after engineering was in the oil and gas industry. So that gave me a flavor for energy. Then after my business school, I did consulting and strategy for a bit. But then kind of when I really wanted to get my hands dirty again, energy was a natural place to come in. And over the last 25 years, I've grown to love the space. I realized that it has deep relevance to everything that we do, and especially with climate change. This is one of the most pressing topics every country, every society faces. So it feels like there's a big role to play as well. And if I can play a small role in making that happen, it's fantastic. So that's what drives me.
Yeah, so there's a lot of personal motivation behind this.
Now there is a lot of personal motivation. Yeah.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about Thermax.
Okay.
So essentially Thermax, from being, it's one of the well-established technology companies out of India. And now you're global. So you're not just in India, but you are now bringing your technology and innovations and services across many countries now. And you could say in a way that it's a pioneer in this space, right? So how do you envision the company's role and in evolving a global push towards, energy transition? Because this has to be done in consensus basis, right? A lot of companies, industries are looking at this. How do you see Thermax's role in facilitating this?
Thank you. I think it's a very pertinent question. And for someone who's been with Thermax now for 5 years, the first bit that struck me in the initial days, and which is something I wasn't aware of to the extent that it is before I took the role, is how much Thermax touches energy across the fabric of the industrial structure that exists. So Thermax not only serves the larger plants, which in Indonesia would be power, which is driven by coal, oil and gas, some amount of mining, metal processing, etc. But also everything that is food and beverage, textiles, rubber, even commercial buildings, etc. So the ability that the company has to drive its solutions across multiple segments is extremely high. Second, coming from India, the opportunity that we have is to create solutions that are high quality and high technology, of course, but back it up with application experience, a cost basis that is relevant to drive much of this energy transition solutions, and then certainly the ability to provide services on the ground to make some of these products, solutions, applications be applicable on the ground. So this whole breadth of the ability to do different things, wherewithal, and a deep interest at the core to driving energy transition. Like you said, our goal is to be a partner to our customers as they go through energy transition.
Yeah.
And our customers are everywhere. Yeah. And Indonesia is a second home for Thermax. We have a plant out here. Yeah. We're starting multiple lines of business. We expect this to to continue to grow. And I'll talk hopefully as we go deeper into the discussion
Sure.
on why I'm so excited about Indonesia in
Yeah.
particular.
Yeah. So the words that actually caught my attention was trusted partner. And trusted partner would mean, being able to even educate your customer.
Sure.
So are you doing any initiatives that is helping to educate companies, factories, managers? Because many of them have taken their technology decisions probably some time ago. How does that word trusted partner play out in the way you relate with your customers?
See, trusted partner comes from when we started to think about what do our customers think of Thermax.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the big things that came about was trust as a word. Because in the 50 years plus that Thermax has been operating in India, and all industrial companies go through ups and downs. Yeah, we provide products that sometimes fail. When you start to do new things, not everything works out the way you want.
Yeah.
But the idea that this is a customer saying this is a company, when it says something, it actually means that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it makes a mistake, it owns up to the mistake, works to fix the product. So that goes a long way, because when Thermax comes and says, I think this is possible, or I think this is right, across the leadership, at least in our home markets, that is something that goes a long way. I think for Thermax, and trust is a word you can use easily, but it takes a long time to earn it. And I'm very clear, in Indonesia, our journey has just started. So before we get trusted, will take decades maybe. Yeah, like you, it took you now been here for 30 years.
Correct.
I'm sure you've seen that as well. Yeah, so we need to go through that journey as well.
Yeah.
It means a lot to me when I see that from our customers. The word trusted has got a lot of relevance, and we take our work very, very seriously in that extent.
So it's actually not just a wordplay. You made a good point actually, Ashish, that trust has to be earned, and at the same time you have to balance it with innovation, which actually comes with experimentation.
Yes.
And the ability to grow with your client and understand their needs and fix the problems, and then come to a solution that actually takes care of the issue.
Yeah.
That's a journey which not many companies may be willing to do. So I think you have a good approach towards how you will build this kind of a trust in the ecosystem.
Look, I'll give you one example, which is exactly along the lines that you talk about. And it's actually a great example for energy transition overall as well. We have a customer in India, and this is a story which is from before my time, but it goes to the trust part, which is the customer wanted to, it's a company that makes potato chips. It's the world's largest company for potato chips.
Okay.
And as you know, potato chips is like an industrial scale fryer where you fry potatoes, and what comes out is steam and water vapor.
Yes.
Yeah, and it has got a lot of heat in it, and it's got a lot of water in it. Thermax worked with this company to say, can we take this, what is coming out, and take the heat out of this, and take the water out of this, and give it back to you. And when it happened, the customer, it was completely novel. There's no one in the world who has done this. And for Thermax too, it was a great idea. We had some of the technology to do this, but it wasn't something that we had done before. So going to the point of how do you mix trust and innovation? So the customer trusted us to take this. We worked on it. What we do is we have a technology called absorption chillers. Absorption chillers ultimately takes the energy from that heat to drive a compression cycle. So you take heat to drive cooling, which is counterintuitive, so to say. But if you go back, all of cooling is ultimately compression. What you need to drive that is energy. You take that energy from the waste heat that is given to you. So we take the heat that comes out of the water vapor. We take the water, we separate the two out. The water is given back to the plant to washing the potatoes and doing everything else that they want. We take the heat out of there to drive the cooling and the chilling cycle for the plant. So something that was wasted is converted back into energy and water. The whole thing, the first time we took it, it took us nearly a year to get that right. But now we are doing plants all across, from Australia to America, for that customer on this technology. And it's just such a good story to be able to share on how do you work innovation, but in a cycle where you are co-inventing with your customers, because, and I've got numerous such examples. And that's how with each interaction, trust builds and develops.
Yeah. Actually, that's a great example. People can relate to potato chips, right? And understanding this particular factor explains it very well. So I want to go dig a bit more into innovation and technology, right? So there are a lot of new green technologies being developed, pushed, or I would say advocated. And I know Thermax would be on top of many of these new trends.
Sure.
But are there any particular technologies that excites you or you think is going to be a game changer? You may or may not have it right now, but just to understand the trend of where this whole market is going.
See, there are three that I particularly think, and this is beyond the whole EV, solar, battery-based plays, which are already being played out. And by the way, these are now a lot more commercially. They are no longer early technologies. These are well-established technologies, so to say. So beyond those, the three that I would particularly want to talk about is first this whole biomass and biofuel space, which is a bioenergy and biofuels, which is a larger umbrella that I would take. And for a country like Indonesia, it's particularly relevant because Indonesia has a big agriculture space, palm in particular, but even beyond palm. You've got big rice, fair amount of sugarcane, maize, variety of different crops that grow. What do you do with the agricultural waste that comes out, and how do you convert it back into something useful is a much bigger push is possible. And for countries like Indonesia, it is dual because it takes waste, converts it into energy. Every bit of energy that it replaces is actually a fossil fuel that it is cutting back on the other side. This provides income to farmers, creates a local supply chain going, cuts down imports, and actually goes a long way towards energy transition as well. And so basically agro waste into energy and municipal solid waste as well. All of that, bringing it back into energy should be something big. The other portion where it connects very well is that tomorrow, much of like the clothes that we wear, they all have some amount of carbon that comes because there's synthetic fibers involved. Plastics, we saw from President Trump, he wants to have his straws back. So plastic is something that is difficult to replace. And there are many, many such applications where the carbon which is there in all of these, we need some renewable form of this carbon. And one of the places the carbon can come from is through this biomass space. So how do you develop a whole series of advanced biofuels, including sustainable aviation fuel, green ethanol or bioethanol? Biodiesel is something I think Indonesia is already using quite a bit, but you can look at the petrol side as well, look at bio, and then a whole series of bio-based petrochemicals, not petrochemicals, but bio-based chemicals that are possible. So that is one extremely exciting space. The second one that is of relevance is hydrogen, which is something that you would have heard quite a bit. And I think hydrogen requires cheap electricity, but it has the power to replace natural gas, to drive long distance transportation, variety of different applications. And this is also something Indonesia should look at. I think Indonesia has some very aggressive plans, like many other countries, but the idea is you need to start experimenting early to see what is possible, what is not possible. So hydrogen would be the second one I would look at. And third is carbon capture. For countries that have got a huge dependence on coal, the CO2 that is emitted from coal is something that we cannot, I think countries like Indonesia, India, we cannot come and say no to coal. Because coal is what drives everything. And if energy needs, like in Indonesia, are growing at 5 to 7% faster than GDP, so to say,
Yeah.
then coal will be part of that equation. We may not build new coal power plants the way we have done in the past,
Yeah.
but the past is still a big part of the energy supply.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you make coal cleaner?
That's right.
And to do that, you have to start playing with carbon capture, capturing CO2, and then figuring out interesting things on what do I do with that CO2. So these are three very important, relevant areas where Indonesia can start doing more work, and all three of them will ultimately cut down energy carbon footprint, will increase self-reliance, which means it will create local jobs, local capabilities, and third, in my view, kind of go a long way in making the planet a better place as well.
Okay, so some good points actually. Indonesia has a new government now, and President Prabowo Subianto has been championing sustainability in a big way. And I think you already know about the fact that all the new power plants, the origins are non-coal, basically. They're looking at renewable energy sources. You rightly mentioned that the much of the current electricity production is based on coal, and clean coal therefore becomes important. Where do you think we are in this from a technology and innovation point of view? Are we ready to implement such solutions now? I mean, does Thermax have ideas and projects and solutions that can be immediately put to action?
So, whole spectrum of answers, and what I talk about is this whole energy transition space is a bit like the title of the movie from that won the best Oscar a couple of years ago, which was Everything Everywhere All at Once. So that is the world that we are in. You have to be able to do new things, but not everything that you look at will be commercially viable today. So you have a set of solutions. Biomass is a set of solutions where many products are commercially viable today. Hydrogen, no.
True.
Carbon capture, definitely not. So that's the spectrum that you're looking at. Even in biomass, some of the advanced biofuels, what is called as the 2G economy, is not commercially viable today. But what is important is that, and solar wasn't commercially viable. I was in the US when, during the first crash that had happened, the economic crash, not the first, the relatively recent one of 2007, 2008. As part of the recovery plan, the US government had given significant subsidies to solar. And that time, solar and wind were not commercially viable. But over the next 10 years, the amount of investments that went into, based on those initial subsidies, has driven solar prices down to the point that solar now no longer needs any sort of subsidy, nothing at all. I think hydrogen will go through a similar roadmap. The question is, do you want to wait 15 years and then have that technology come from outside and to do all that, or do you want to incentivize? It's a bad, incentivize is not an English word, but I'll use it. But do we want to incentivize local industries, local manufacturing, all of that over this period, so that this portion of transition becomes a portion where you are setting up domestic industries as well? I think that is the example. And I mean, China is a great example of a country that has managed to do that successfully. I think countries like Indonesia, India should look at this very urgently as well. And I know India at least has got numerous policies that are now starting to create. And today, India, for example, is saying that 5% of fertilizers, refining petrochemical, they need to move from grey hydrogen to green hydrogen. Corsica says by 2027, 1% of aviation fuel should be sustainable. So small increments.
Steps.
But you're starting to. But those small numbers can be big for those new industries.
Absolutely understood. So, this is a interesting conversation because we're getting to understand some of the actionable side of, energy transition. Otherwise, it's a buzzword and a lot of people, it doesn't translate very well. So, I actually like the idea that we should probably work together and create a program to educate factory managers, technologists, etc., on the essentials of energy transition, so that you can demystify the entire thing and bring it down to these little steps which are actually actionable steps. It's a great idea. So I want to talk a little bit about how Thermax, originally a company out of India, today is global, and there are many companies like this. This is a phenomenon that's been going on where technology from India is essentially playing a role in helping other countries in various aspects of in the industry. So ASEAN is a market that you're now looking at, and
Yes.
I'm sure that it is one step into ASEAN and then another step to the rest of the world. And regulatory landscapes in all of these countries are very different. And every country has, no doubt they're trying to align towards one direction, but there are a lot of roadblocks, and there are a lot of policy issues, and there are local issues which may be different from one country to another, So do you see these kind of geopolitical factors impacting your growth strategies, or what's your way of navigating around this so that you have a solution for every country that you go to? And obviously it won't be a one shoe fits all, right?
Sure.
How do you see this whole approach towards going global?
Okay. See, in the world that we live in right now, and it's every day it's a new story.
Yeah.
I think when I went to business school, we learned so much about globalization, that there were formal markets. We had world organizations and trade bodies that were setting standards. There was so much that said that make something at where it is cheapest, move it wherever it needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
All of that learning, especially in this post-COVID era, we are having to relearn.
Yeah.
Because and I think the good part that way of coming from India is that very little surprises us.
Yeah.
Because I think India itself is such a complex environment.
Correct.
It's getting better by the year, but we have seen all kinds of trade regulations, all kinds of internal, external barriers, and in general, you go into new markets not with the idea that I am right, I know everything, with the idea that every market is unique, and you need to understand why somebody wants what they want, and then see if that fits you or not.
Correct.
Yep. So for example, right now, I mean, we were previously thinking about what do we do about serving North America with our products, etc. Today, we will say, okay, let's wait a little bit before how some of this evolves. But in Southeast Asia, I particularly see most of it as an opportunity. Because while there are regulatory differences, and regulatory differences abound. I'll give you numerous examples here on renewable energy targets differ by markets. Singapore, which is the leader, is coming out with a implied carbon tax based on an established carbon market that they want to create, and that carbon tax will increase, and they have shared a schedule. Other markets may not do so for a very long time based on their reasons. Pollution, how much emissions you can have, changes by law from places to places. So a palm industry in one part of Southeast Asia may require different set of technologies than the palm industry in a different part of Southeast Asia. So you have to be aware of how these regulations drive your capability. But at the core, the drive for efficiency, drive for creating standards that are getting tougher and tougher. The idea that things like water are no longer completely free, they're short. There are multiple of these themes that are consistent across many countries. So it is perfectly fine to focus on problems you can solve and not use that this place is too easy or difficult and regulations are to use that as an excuse not to do things.
Understand.
Focus on working with customers, focus on doing things. I mean, one of the best examples that I can give you is Thermax didn't do much with in the palm industry, because palm industry, especially the CPU mills, were supposed to be the cheapest technology and very kind of hand to mouth. Yeah, so they never had an incentive to invest in doing things right.
Yeah.
It was okay to pollute a bit because they were very close to agriculture and all. Interestingly, lately now things are starting to change across multiple geographies. I'll be very quick with this example.
Sure.
Historically, palm, which is the waste that comes out of palm, has got three parts here: the kernel itself, the fiber, and what is called as the empty fruit punch in amount of energy that they have.
Great.
Yeah, so the portions that have the higher energy have got so much demand in Japan and Korea and other places that it's all being exported. Now what was palm fiber is also going out. What is left is the empty fruit punches.
Correct.
Yeah, which is tough. It has got high moisture, all of that. So if we are able to work, and I'm going to Thailand next to just spend 3 days just in the palm industry of Thailand, where we are able to take empty fruit bunches, which are previously incinerated completely as waste, convert that into energy, let them export the pricier parts, create a solution by which the highest environmental norms are met, then that is a solution I can take to Indonesia, I can take to Thailand, I can take to Malaysia, all the places, irrespective of what the norms are in those various different countries. Focus on what I can solve and not worry about what I can't solve.
So in fact, this is an opportunity. You said the right word, because these geopolitical differences might be able to give you solutions which are then applicable everywhere else. It allows you to, if you have innovation behind you as a company, that's when it's an opportunity. Am I right?
Exactly. Very true. And I think you can be sure, you can be okay that something is more practical in one part of the world and is not practical in another. That is just life. Yeah, deal with it and move on.
Sure. So, you mentioned COVID-19 pandemic in the description that you were just giving, and it struck me actually that you did take charge of Thermax exactly in the middle of, the COVID pandemic. What were some of the learnings you had, or I would say takeaways from that period, which you felt was a transition in the way the whole world looked at everything? Was that a turning point? Though it was from a health sector perspective, but how did it change everything else?
See, now 5 years out, nearly 5 years, in a couple of months at least it'll be 5 years out, that we can really look back and say, was this a point where we started to? I think yes. What happened at COVID-19 was all across the world, especially in the initial part, all countries got into a mode of what is in it for myself. Yeah, everywhere. You put trade regulations, you put barriers of people moving in and out. Even in markets that were supposedly one, people said, no, if you're crossing this border, then I need million checks done. Everybody, because chips were not available, so cars couldn't get made. The first cars that got made went to the market where the chips were being made and where the cars were located. So everyone at that period started to think about, I need more control over my ecosystem. The second thing that happened was that when we came out of COVID, everyone wanted to drive their domestic economies. So this whole idea about make it here, make it for me, make it, what is in it, in Indonesia, by Indonesians, for Indonesians, as an example. So that became the buzzword almost everywhere in the world. And that then, with all the political changes that were going on, has created in my mind a very different world. I think I saw that world coming through. I was very, very new at Thermax, but and coming from a multinational like GE, in my previous life, I saw how a different approach, like what Thermax is looking to do, which is a lot more local, hand in hand, not focusing just on the big picture, but focusing on things you can action on the ground, is a much better way of making a difference,
Sure.
of making progress. It's maybe a little slower than it could be otherwise, but that's a much better approach for now.
So, a lot of things you mentioned talks about the circular economy. And circular economy ideas started propagating a lot.
Yes.
And I think, you play a big role in that process, because not only is it at an industrial level, but you can practice it even down to a village or a town level, etc. So I think, the point you made about COVID-19 changing the way we think and probably starting to care a lot more about the planet and sustainability might be one of the, offset outcomes that, is helping us to make this transition much faster. So I want to talk, some practical aspects of your business, right? And it's nice to say that we want to go into energy transition, just energy, go towards that. But it has a cost implication. And for a lot of companies, there is this whole balancing of sustainability versus profitability, right? How do you address this when your customers come to you, when they have to make a new investment?
Sure.
And there must be definitely a convincing argument, because you have so many customers, right? Your customer base is growing. So I'd like to hear a little bit about, what is the way that you are able to convey to your potential customer why this is good for them?
Look, as Thermax, we are very clear, and which is why we are a trusted partner in energy transition.
Yes.
The idea is not that everything will be sustainable tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah, even Indonesia's goal to be net zero is 2060.
Yes.
So everything is in transition. We cannot come in and say, here's the most expensive but completely green solution and please implement it tomorrow. Yeah, the idea is, how do you go work this as step by step. And for Thermax, that's the approach. Yeah, it is, and we haven't said no to doing business in coal or on fossil fuels. We are saying at all points, whatever you are doing, how do you make it cleaner, greener, and better? Even if it's coal, then you start looking at clean coal technologies, clean coal
there's a lot to
capabilities, and there's a lot to do out there. So the first part of this puzzle, which is the first thing that starts, is energy efficiency. Yeah, energy efficiency and related projects, which are services driven, which is replacing motors with more efficient motors, starting to take every part of waste heat in a plant and saying, can I recover that waste heat and convert it into energy? These are all ideas that are relatively low hanging.
Yes.
Yeah, because they have paybacks. They have paybacks from 1 year to 5 years. I'm giving you money back, and it is cutting down your bills. Yeah, the old example was replacing bulbs with LED bulbs. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. Every LED bulb will give you same amount of brightness with lower electricity cost.
Correct.
It costs a little bit more, it'll pay you back in 2 years.
Correct.
A larger plant has got many such ideas. Every process plant has so much of waste heat that is coming that can be converted back into energy. And Thermax can help with all of those kinds of technologies. The second example I would give you, going back to my theme of biomass as an example, taking conventional, so the other interesting thing that I learned is Indonesia is the world's second largest producer of instant noodles.
That's right.
Which is, and so I'll share an example from instant noodles. Instant noodles, and the biggest name in instant noodles, and very popular in India. We are now doing multiple plants for them, where they have said, I will move away from coal for my plants, because all these food and noodle plants, they are regional. You don't set up one massive plant. You set them in various different places. So we work with them, and instead of using coal to drive energy for that plant, we now use biomass. And we set up the plant in a way that we use biomass that is available locally. So in India, for example, one place, it could be empty groundnut shells. Cotton stalk, soya stalk, things that are complete waste, but from that region. and done in a way that Thermax owns the plant, Thermax sources the biomass, and we operate the plant as well for the customer. So it's called a build, own, operate model.
Correct.
So we own the plant, operate the plant for the customer, and we give them steam. So they pay for the steam on a per ton basis.
Per ton basis.
And that steam to them is cheap, as cheap as coal, if not cheaper. Okay, so Thermax manages the entire plant for them, and now all their plants, at least in South Asia, are going to this model. Yeah, which is build, own, operate, run by Thermax, managed. That's a great example of cutting energy footprint, making it commercially viable, taking something that's a problem area for you, yeah, and making it completely an outsourcing based model. Works on multiple fronts. The example that I gave you on chillers, on waste heat, using it back, that's also one more example that pays for itself. Yeah, so those are all, so there are whole host of solutions like that that are commercially viable, require people to be aware.
Yeah.
And in general, you touched upon the theme of circularity, waste to energy, continuously thinking about. And the plan that we have set up in Indonesia is particularly good for doing these waste to energy plants and applications.
Okay.
And that is part of our localization commitment. We are not just here to make the equipment. We want to work with the customers to understand and help educate them that there are numerous commercially viable solutions that exist that can help them in this energy transition journey.
Understand. Yeah.
Certainly some of the other solutions will be more expensive than traditional solutions. But I don't think there is anything like if you have to the planet has to hit a 2%, 2 degree temperature goal. Yeah, the 1.5 is already gone.
Sure.
We will all have to make some sacrifices. Yeah, so some companies, especially the more progressive ones, are starting to think about what do I do? How do I? And if nothing else, start at least experimenting, start doing some things so that you know what your individual experience is like.
Yeah. No, you're right. Actually, there are a lot of companies which are going green who are willing to pay more.
And
for them,
be consumers who will be willing to pay a little more as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The consumers want to invest or buy products that are green.
Absolutely.
And they're willing to pay that premium. Yeah, right. Okay. So, you know, the build, operate, transfer model that you talked about, it brings me to another point about, are there financing available for companies if they want to go into green technologies? Are there grants available? Or does Thermax facilitate investing into certain technologies? I'm saying, is there opportunity in that space?
On the build, own, operate model specifically for the plants that Thermax does, we provide the financing, we provide everything. Our only condition out there is that it should be green. Okay. Yeah, so we don't, if there is any fossil fuel involved, then we don't touch it. But we provide like zero liquid discharge solutions, bioenergy solutions, even desalination plants, things of that nature on a build, own, operate basis. In general, the world over, financing, there is a fair amount of financing which is dedicated towards driving green projects in developing markets. And even in the last COP, COP meetings, there was a whole fund that was created specifically for investing. In my view, that work is going slower than what the world would like. I think especially in markets like Indonesia, all the entire Southeast Asia, India, Africa, lot more financing needs to come in to drive the energy transition, especially the bigger projects around hydrogen, utility scale, solar, wind, renewable, etc. They will need access to low-cost financing to make this happen. And I think Indonesia has plans as well, but they just need to move faster.
Okay. So, you know, I think at the end of this podcast, we will like to talk a little bit more about the region, right? ASEAN and Indonesia. Particularly ASEAN. And, you know, Indonesia is the largest country in ASEAN, and it has a huge impact in the way policies are driven, or they work together as a region, let's put it that way. And, you know, you have a big operation here in Indonesia, and I know you're in a few other countries, and I believe that you're also now planning to expand your footprint in ASEAN, grow your brand, grow the relationships you have with the market. And probably Indonesia could play a role as being the hub, your entry into the region, right? How do you, could you give me a little bit of an idea of what is your Indonesia plan? And I know you have a factory here, and you have a, it's for Indonesians by Indonesia, which is a great philosophy. You're doing capacity building here as well, and allowing the local workforce or the associates that work for you to understand how they are a part of this global Thermax phenomenon, right? So I wanted to understand a little bit about your Indonesia vision, and tell us a little bit about your factory here and some of the things that you're planning to do in Indonesia specifically.
So our factory itself is in Cilegon, which is about, depending on traffic, an hour to 3 hours away from Jakarta. It's a relatively new plant. It's the newest plant within the Thermax portfolio, but even that is now pre-COVID times. So it's 6-7 years that we have been here, and the factory is getting bigger and bigger with time. We now have about 150 people, but we are committed to continuing to invest and continuing to grow. I think Indonesia for Thermax, as I've said previously, I would like it to be a second home for Thermax, because I feel like Indonesia has many things going for it. It's a big country. It has growing energy needs. It is developing relatively faster at growth rates of more than 5%. Abundant access to natural resources. Abundant access to even green resources, things like biomass, agro waste, the whole kind of island look at things, which is a more distributed view at things. So makes the whole region perfect for a company like Thermax. So we want to invest, we want to look at it for the long run. I have been very impressed overall every time I come to the region. People work hard, they mean well, and ultimately we all want to make the world a better place, but it cannot be at the cost of my today and tomorrow. We need to feed mouths, we need to provide electricity, we need to provide water, we need to provide all of these things in a cost-effective manner. So I think the role that Thermax can play in such an ecosystem where energy availability and sustainability has to be balanced, Thermax can be a bridge. And to be able to do that, we need to become truly a local company. And if we are able to do that, then Indonesia becomes a home market for Thermax, and through Indonesia, we can serve the larger ASEAN region. That is the belief. Today we are in boilers. Very soon, in fact, next month, we will be in chemicals as well. After that, as things expand, we want to bring clean air technologies, which is on pollution control, etc., and clean water technologies around desalination, RO, and then kind of as the world goes forward, variety of newer capabilities out of Indonesia as well. So it's a long, of all our plants outside of India, Indonesia is the one that I'm most excited about, because the future has got tremendous potential. So that's the hope.
So, but from what I understand, that there is no real barrier. You can bring whatever products that Thermax makes anywhere in the world can be brought here, right?
Absolutely.
You don't necessarily need to have everything being made here.
No. Today we can, but I think I firmly believe, at least for a market which is as big as Indonesia, ultimately, if you have to serve it really well, and given, as we talked about, that many of the needs of the customer based on the regulations, etc., are unique, you have to think about a path of localization. So you can have the core capability from wherever, but ultimately, and especially the kinds of industries Thermax serves. We are not an aviation company that there are two platforms in the world and everything can be made. I think the kinds of products that we made in the various industries that you talk about, the localization, the application experience, the local services capability, all of that is something that we can develop locally. Yeah, I would want our first set of products to get somewhat better established. We'll continue to bring newer and different ranges here.
Yeah, you're right, actually. So this is a big playground.
This is a big playground,
yeah.
and it's a long-term playground.
Do you see research and innovation, R&D facilities also coming here?
So far, not. I hope we can get to that portion in the future. For that, you need to be able to build an ecosystem where you are able to collaborate with local universities, do all that. We are not at that scale yet. But we do innovate in, it may not be called R&D, but a lot of the products that we provide are based on customer needs. Yeah, in all the industries, whether it's textiles, steel, cement, even the food and beverage, all the examples. That level of product-based innovation, we do continuously with our customers. Yeah, which is some of the examples that I shared.
Understood. Okay. So I want to ask you this last question and end on this. President Prabowo Subianto has set a target that Indonesia's GDP should grow at 8%. And he's given 4 years for that to happen. And today we are at 5%. So that's a big jump that we need to do. And I think everybody here has been thinking about, okay, that being a lighthouse number. It's not that if you go towards 8%, you'll probably end up at 6 or 7, right? From your experience and the work that Thermax does, would you have any advice on some of the things that you are involved in, which could help contribute towards this journey towards getting to the extra 3 percentage points?
Look, I'll say if you are growing at 8%, then most likely your energy needs are growing at 12%.
I see.
Okay. Because agriculture is largely fixed, services will grow, but the core then has to come through manufacturing, which for Indonesia has huge potential given its natural resources. If you have to grow manufacturing, all of manufacturing requires energy, requires power. Okay, so focusing on this, how are you going to grow the energy sector? And simultaneously, as you're working this, figuring out what is the energy transition plan, starting to make policy decisions around energy transition that will support that growth, using that as an engine to drive this larger thing, especially going back to this comment on having access to natural resources. That can become a big engine for Indonesia. And as that moves forward, it can take the rest of the economy along with it as well. So that will be my simple one.
In fact, that is actually absolutely demystified it. The surprise truth is all about, a timely insight that can change your life forever. And I think, Ashish just ended it with that exact insight that we're looking for. 12% growth in energy requirement will translate down to 8% growth in GDP. And therefore, if you work backwards, you will be able to look at what are the key essential industries. Industrialization becomes important, and working backwards would get a blueprint of what are the priorities that one needs to face, both from an industry perspective as well as the government, to look at bringing together a blueprint that will help us towards the 8% growth. With that, I'd like to thank you. Thank you, Ashish.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you being on our show, and really looking forward to more follow-up episodes. We could deep dive into some of the topics you talked about. And wishing you all the best, and hope Thermax has a great run and contributing towards the economy of Indonesia. And I would like to say to the viewers that if you have any comments, please put it down in the comment section here. And if you would like to contact us directly to know more about Thermax or more about what the company is doing in Indonesia, or maybe in one of the countries that you are from, we do have viewers in 47 countries. And Thermax has got a big footprint across the whole region, and feel free to reach out and get to know more about how Thermax can be your trusted partner in your energy transition journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sachin, and it's a pleasure being here.
Good. Thank you, great.